The one really cool thing about the trademark system is that once you file, your application is immediately available to the public, so anyone can actually start searching and seeing the application that you submitted. So what I wanted to do in this episode was I wanted to show you guys some recent filings by Nike, just because there's such a huge iconic brand, been around for so long, and just put out so much different types of goods that I think they're a really, really good learning example. We can learn a lot from seeing what they file. Dive in, let's take a look. And again, what I'm showing you guys today on this episode, you'll be able to apply to really any company that you're interested in doing research on. So check it out. I'm going to show you guys step by step how you can go about doing this. And hopefully you guys learn some interesting stuff. So let's get started. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to share my screen. What you're going to want to do is you're going to want to go to tsdr.uspto.gov. So I'm already at it. But once you're here, you're going to want to click on search trademarks. So you're going to click on search trademarks. Now, once I click on search trademarks, I'm just going to do a basic word mark search. I don't need to do anything tricky for this. And I'm just going to type in Nike and Inc. And then I'm going to type in owner. So this is going to basically give me results that have Nike Inc. And when I do that, I get a whole bunch of results. I'm going to focus on just these here. I know right away we can do episodes in the future on Nike, but as you can see, 844 records have been returned. I mean, this is a huge, huge company. But let's just focus on these. We can learn a lot just by looking at these initial ones. What we're going to learn is that these were actually filed relatively recently, some as early as December. So let's start at the very top. I'm actually going to change this to image list just because it's kind of cool. So we're going to be looking at these marks right here. In this particular case, just 6 marks. I anticipate this is going to be a relatively short episode, but one that you're going to be able to learn a lot from. So just by looking at this, what you're going to notice is that what Nike has done is they have filed trademarks on the look of their shoe, the sole of the shoe, the side of the shoe, and also, for example, here on the actual button of shirts. So let's start from the top. Let's look at the sole of the shoe. So let's look at this shoe right here. Now, the first thing to note, I'm going to open the image in a new tab, and I'm going to zoom in so that you guys can see this nice and clearly. Hopefully you guys can see that. Now, what I want to point out is that the broken lines don't form part of their design. So they're not claiming, for example, these grooves here or these grooves here or the outline of the shoe. What they're claiming is distinctive, and that serves as a source identifier is this line right here. You guys can see my mouse. It's this line right here that comes all around. So that is what they're claiming as a 3D-dimensional configuration, and that serves as a source identifier. So let's see what they say. So this marks consists of a 3-dimensional configuration comprising the design located on the middle section of the sole of the shoe. So it's kind of interesting. In this application, for some reason, they didn't mention the broken lines. Typically, what you see with 3D configuration marks is the application usually indicates that broken lines don't form part of the claim design. That wasn't done in this particular application. But one thing I'll note is that it's a 1A application, which means that they're already using this mark in commerce. Now, one thing I'm going to do is I'm going to zoom in just so it's easier on the eyes. I apologize. I should have been zoomed in from the start. But again, as you can see, this is their description of the mark, but it's a 1A, which means that they're already using this mark in commerce. So let's dive in. Let's take a look at it. Let's see if we can learn more and see what for example, they submitted as a specimen. So if I click on specimen here, this will actually show me the actual shoe. So this is the shoe that was submitted. And if I scroll over, you can actually see the design right here. So right here, this purple midsection right here, this design, this is what they're claiming is distinctive and serves as a source identifier and is their 3-dimensional configuration. So let's do a quick comparison. As you can see, it's actually inverted from what was actually shown in the application. But if you can imagine flipping it around, it starts at the base here on the edges, and it comes in towards the heel of the shoe. So as we see here, so it starts here and it goes towards the heel of the shoe and it curves around. So again, it is possible to submit trademarks on things like items like this, where it's an actual shoe. Let's just take a look, see when they started selling the shoe. So what you'll note is that they started selling, oh, it's like back in the 90s. Interesting. Okay. So what I'm seeing here is this application is actually a little more complicated because it looks like they submitted a declaration. See what we can learn from this. This might take a little while to load just because it's kind of a big file. So here Nike had to present evidence, a declaration of acquired distinctiveness. Quite interesting. I mean, this is the proof that this particular design has acquired distinctiveness, and this is their explanations for it. So this actually might be a good example if you guys are trying to submit acquired distinctiveness arguments. You might want to take a look at that. One thing I'll note is that acquired distinctiveness is typically 5 years of continuous use in commerce is typically sufficient. So if you don't have 5 years of continuous use, though, then typically you have to submit evidence to that effect. And as you can see, this declaration is 516 pages. So what we're going to see is they have tons and tons of evidence that was submitted. Now, whether or not all this evidence is directly on point for this particular application, that may or may not be the case. But they certainly provided, or are trying to provide, as much possible evidence showing that that sole pattern is in fact distinctive. So let's go ahead, let's go back. Let's take a look at the other applications because I think you'll find them interesting as well. Let's take a look at the next one. I'm going to zoom out here and then I'll zoom back in. So, oh, whoops, this mark here. So this is also a three-dimensional configuration comprising the design located on the midsole section of the shoe that includes an elongated interior shape. So as you can see right here, this shape right here. So let's take a look at it. Let's see what the actual shoe, what's the specimen that was submitted. I'm going to open it up again so that you guys can see it. So it's nice and big, and I'll zoom in on it. And again, we're looking at here on the side right here. And then if we open the specimen, we can actually see what specimen was submitted. So here you go. Here's the actual specimen. And here it is right here. This outline right here. You can see it also appears right here. So pretty interesting. And then this was filed on December 14. And again, they're also submitting evidence here of acquired distinctiveness, it looks like. So kind of a more complicated application than what we typically see. But again, it is Nike, and they do have, it looks like, some significant evidence of acquired distinctiveness. And so that's why it's being presented in the application. Now, this right here is covering a button. So again, this mark consists of an orange letter N stitched inside buttonholes that's located above an orange rectangle, both of which are positioned on the placket of the shirt. Now, one thing I'll notice here, they have that statement about broken lines not forming part of the, not being claimed as part of the mark. Another thing I'll note, actually, let me go into the application so we can get a nice big image of it. So I'm going to open this in a new tab. So this is the old one. Okay, so this is the one we're looking at now. As you can see, here's the button with the Nike on it, and here's the orange rectangle. Now, if we open up this, so the color orange is claimed as a feature of the mark. So this is also a color mark. So they're claiming not just the design, but also the color. So kind of interesting. That's another option that you guys have if you guys are trying to file marks and protect your clothing in more creative ways. This is a really good example of one way that Nike did it. And again, let's take a look. So this is a 1A filing. So let's take a look at what evidence was submitted for use in commerce. This was submitted in December 11. And as you can see, here's a shirt right here. Now it's a little blurry, but they zoomed in a bit. So here's the button and here's the orange rectangle. So pretty interesting. Orange rectangle and the orange button right there. Let's see if this application was as complicated as the last one. Yeah, it looks like they didn't have to submit. Looks like in this application, they did not submit proof of acquired distinctiveness. So let's go back. Let's take a look at the other interesting marks. So here's one on a shirt. And then these last two that we're going to look at are on shoes. So this was filed on December 15th. And again, it's a three-dimensional configuration of material panels of the exterior body of the shoe. So I'll zoom in here, right here, and the design of the ridge pattern on the sides of the sole of the shoe. So as you can see, there's a ridge pattern here on the sole and the side panels. So let's go into TSDR. Let's take a look at it a little closer. We can even zoom in and take a bigger look at the actual mark that was submitted itself. So it's loading for me here. So here it is. I'll open it in a new tab so we can see it nice and clearly. I'll zoom in. So this is This is the panels here that they're claiming. And let's also take a look at the specimen. So this is the specimen that was submitted. Again, it's a website. Looks like allowing the purchaser to actually buy one of the shoes. So here you go. So here it is right here. So this is the outline that you see, and here's the ridge pattern on the bottom. And you can see that is this shoe right here. So pretty interesting. Now let's go back. Let's take a look at the last two that we're going to look at in this episode. So let's take a look at this one. It looks like it was a high top. This looks like it's a low. And again, it's the panel, the ridge pattern on the sides. So pretty interesting. Let's go right into TSDR. Let's take a look at the actual shoe itself. Again, it's kind of interesting to do that. It's kind of neat to see what specimen they were actually submitted. So this is the shoe. And again, this ridge pattern on the sole, these lines here, and then the side panels here. So let's take a look. Let's take a look at the specimen. This was submitted last July. And here you go. There's the shoe itself right here. So this is the shoe. And this is the, now one thing to note, they don't actually have the swoosh logo. So they're just focusing on these elements here, these side panels and these sidelines right here. So, and also these ridges on the bottom that you can see right here. Here are the ridges right here. Very interesting. So let's go look at the third shoe. So this shoe here looks like it's even lower cut. And again, they're focusing on the panels, the ridge pattern on the sides, and the panels on the heels. So let's go into TSDR. Let's look at the actual, let's get a nice image of the mark so we can see it clearly. I'll zoom in for you guys. And then let's also pull up the specimen. It's always nice to compare the two. So again, this was submitted last July. And here you go. There's the shoe. There's the shoe, the specimen that was submitted. And then this is the actual mark that's being applied for. And again, note, it's very interesting. They don't submit pictures of swoosh, of the Nike swoosh logo. It's not shown here because that's not what this mark is focusing on. They're really focusing on the panels, the ridges, and the heel pattern, not the Nike swoosh. So again, really, really good examples. I really like this particular episode because we're just looking at how one of the world's mega corporations uses US trademarks to cleverly protect more than just their brand names, for example, names of their shoes, but the actual look of the shoe itself. And I think it's really, really cool because what you can do is, as long as you continue selling, you're able to claim and to own this mark indefinitely. So it's a really, really powerful right. And it's something that you guys should all consider, especially if you guys are putting on clothes in the market, taking a look at what the big companies do, what the big clothing companies do in order to protect their intellectual property is a great way for you guys to learn and to get examples for creative ideas for how you can go about protecting your clothing or your shoes, hats, any sort of apparel items that you guys sell and put out in the market. You can creatively protect, possibly with trademarks. And looking at seeing how Nike does it is just one example, but I think it's really, really instructive. So I hope you guys found this episode helpful. You should definitely go back and research some of other marks by Nike. And we're going to do a lot more episodes on some of these big brands because, again, I think they have a lot of really, really interesting not use cases, but examples that we can all learn from and that you guys can apply when you guys are thinking about, okay, I'm putting my shirt company out on the market. Okay, definitely you can protect the logo, you can protect the name, but is there something distinctive about the actual look of the garment that is sufficient that could possibly be the subject of also a 3D configuration trademark? Thank you so much for watching. I hope you found this useful. If you guys have questions about intellectual property or have ideas for future episodes, please email them to Victoria. You can email her at victoria@adibiip.com. You can also text our community at 415-943-5193, 415-943-5193. We'd love to have you in my text community. Shoot me a text. You'll have direct access to me, and you can send me your questions or your ideas for future shows.